Right. I'm going to have to just try and do this. It's going to be probably terrible, but it needs to be done or try because it was ceremony 40, and in some ways it was the most important uh, ceremony at the time for me. Um, it was a very difficult ceremony, as it turned out, with a real faith and existential existence sort of major crisis that had been building since a week before in Iquitos about what I'm actually doing and why and what I believe and everything after watching a video by Richard Grannon, who explained his first ayahuasca experience, which was terrible. And because of that, there's lots of reasons I don't want to go into, but if you want to watch it, it's on the Richard Grannon. Richard Grannon is a qualified psychologist who helped me a lot in the early days of researching narcissistic personality disorder. And eventually he finally did an ayahuasca ceremony, obviously because of so many people do it for reasons of trauma, which is what he deals with in terms of specifically, he focuses a lot on narcissistic personality disorder, running a life coach site. Very clever guy, has done a lot of martial arts and knows his philosophy, etc., and different religions, aspects of Buddhism, and all this sort of stuff. So he's a very smart guy, but I don't think he did his research. I don't really want to comment too much, but it did disturb me because the upshot of his interview was he went to a really bad retreat that was basically a rip-off with a fake shaman in Switzerland. So it was a lot of people were there, probably a good group of, I don't know, a lot anyway, on mats. He talks about the Trustafarian, the elitist mentality of, oh, we're the spiritual people, we do ayahuasca, but looking down on everyone else, he just thought they were a bunch of narcissists. I don't know how much he paid. He got dragged along with a friend, but I don't think he did their research. So that is his fault. He should have looked a lot more into it and kind of got a better idea of what can happen with ayahuasca. But basically, he went on the actual effects. He said it was just a whole bad scenario right from the word go. But you can watch that yourself. So just putting that out there. But it was horrendous for me because what was interesting, he actually got, even though there were so many questions brought up for me about how things work, because he got a connection with what appeared to be Mama Ayahuasca. Now, I'm not sure that it was. So this is what really threw me, because he said there were also other entities present, but his mind was talking to him again, like Mama Ayahuasca, but really scathing, like blunt, like, what the fuck are you doing here anyway? You need to get out of this. And he was saying that he explained that he helps people. So, well, if you're doing that, what are you here for? So he had just this horrible experience, and this really stuck with me. So before I even came to this retreat, I was saying to Mama, not being on ayahuasca, but before I even came, when I was sort of meditating and stuff, we need to talk about this because I need to know whether that was you that was actually there. Now, in my ceremony, my 40th, the subject cropped up. I remembered it later on when I was heavily tripping, and I mentioned it, and I got no answer whatsoever. And this didn't help at all. So it was a really heavy ceremony for me because I was also being purged, which I know now because I feel pretty good, and I'm in a different state of mind about the content of my last ceremony. It was very difficult later. So starting from the beginning, the first cup, I just went with what Maestro gave me, probably about a third of a cup. Nothing happened. It was a full moon. Don't know. I've been in situations where some shamans have said that celestial events can affect things. I've been in one where spirits have appeared late on, after a second cup, before anything happened to anybody, in 2 retreats, because I knew a girl that was at another one at the same time, and when we spoke about it when we met again, and they said everything happened late for them as well. Well, this happened this night. The first cup, nothing happened. Like 2 hours, because I think Maestro fell asleep as well. Gino fell asleep. It was Colin's first time, and which we saw in the video yesterday, which was the fastest I've ever seen anybody come up and vomit before even having the initial effects of ayahuasca affecting them. It just hit him and vomit, bang. So that was really interesting, which is what I spoke about in the previous video. So for me, and I was perfectly straight. So it went for about 2 hours, and I was getting to the point where fucking twiddling my thumbs sort of thing, just looking out to the moonlight, the trees, thinking, oh, it's a beautiful night, but nothing's happening. I assume it was for everybody else. They were all quiet. Joshua had a full cup, but nothing for me, and that hasn't happened for a long, long time, probably a year and a half or more ago. And so then I was kind of sitting up thinking, well, Maestro was lying down as well. I thought, has he fallen asleep? Because it's got to be about time for the second cup by now. And then Gino must have kind of got the message. He was asleep as well, but he did kind of stir, and then he got up and he went over to Maestro, and he seemed to be almost waking him up. Sort of after the first round of 2 hours of Icaros, he was having a rest or whatever he's doing, monitoring the energy and this sort of thing. But whether he dozed off or he was so far gone in whatever he was doing, and then they spoke, and he was sort of like, oh yeah, ask who wants one, sort of thing. But I got the impression, I didn't hear it exactly, but I got the impression he said, but not Colin. Don't offer a second cup even to Colin, because he'd vomited with like 15 minutes. And he as he said, was in visions anyway, and going through reliving some serious trauma of the major depressions that he suffered. So anyway, I thought, well, I'm here. I knew it was kind of my first one. I knew I'd have to be cleaned pretty badly, which I was in some respects, but it wasn't. It was more about the content of the actual connection with Mama. We had I was angry, a lot of frustration and anger to get rid of at Mama. But I'll talk about that when I get there, because and I can talk to her like that. There's no offense, as I said before, in the spirit world. She loves everybody, and and she did say that. She said to me at one point, "You want to swear at me, don't you?" And I just said, "Well, you fucking know, don't you?" So anyway, you know what's going on in my head. So yes, I fucking do, because I'm sick of this. This is fucking ridiculous. But anyway, before I get to that, because I don't even know if I can recount. The depth of it was so deep and long, and it all happened back in my room after the ceremony, when everything hit me. Everything came on late. So when I had the second cup, I went with whatever he gave me again. It was probably about a third of a cup again. So I just drank it, because I thought, obviously I was thinking I want to be in that trip space, because I kind of enjoy it in a warped kind of masochistic way. And I can sort of, because I'm always heavily connected to Mama, and it's with the way Hyro works these days, they're all like this now. They can be, really visual and very, a lot of communication with Mama in the ceremony. But for me and others, you get back to the room, and it's still coming on strong even after the ceremony's closed. Like, can't even walk back, wobbling all over the place, have to be walked back, vomit maybe. And I came back, and I knew I had to vomit. I didn't feel like vomiting. I didn't have any issues in the ceremony. It wasn't nothing strong. I did have quite a bit of discomfort as far as just, well, when I got back here, I certainly did. I knew I had to do the usual, just stick your fingers down your throat, vomit, get that out. But something was still stuck with, and I couldn't get over that. And it was a horrible feeling. It was a bit like the first days of going through what I used to think was the aftermath of reliving alcohol come downs, which I've said about in other videos. It's not, that's complex post-traumatic stress, but that hot, like the shakes, and very, very, just horribly sicky feeling, just unpleasant. And even the vomiting didn't stop that. I was still tripping really heavily back at the room. Kind of amusing in some way, but I didn't even want the apple. Even if I drank water, I didn't really want it. Everything didn't taste nice. But when I vomited, the taste, deep stuff, once all the bile had gone, then ayahuasca came up, and you can taste it. And mixed with bile, it's bad enough on its own, but mixed with bile, it's even worse. And that makes you throw up even more, which is great. You're getting it out, but it's horrible. And then brush your teeth. And then, of course, I had a bite of the apple. It tasted horrible after the toothpaste, so that was no good. And So I was in that state basically when I got back to the room, and this is when the major part of the conversations happened, because in ceremony, I think it's difficult to remember it now, but because this is the morning after yesterday's, all day yesterday, which was hard. I was hungover all day, just feeling like shit. I had a headache. I didn't get much sleep, probably maybe 2 or 3 hours at best, but I felt like I'd had none all day. Had a headache, and then I got a migraine toward evening before dinner at about 7. So I just felt shitty because of this night that I'd had. And so basically things started to really unfold once I got back to this room, and this conversation evolved with Mama, and it got really heated. It came out in the wash and I felt okay about it the next day, but there was some really difficult things. And this had been brewing since Akitos, thinking about, the money, long-term future, what am I going to do, this sort of thing. And this is what ayahuasca, it does, what you get told on sort of 1 week, it does change, because I know now, she doesn't necessarily tell you the whole truth if she tells you anything at all. But what she does tell you is what you need at that moment to get, maybe, because it's part of the healing. She's dealing with a specific issue, and something may need to be said to give you an idea in your conscious mind so that that's then resolved. But for you as an overall, your memory of all your experiences, you think that you're having honest conversations much of the time, although some of them are obviously the wild visions. They can't possibly be true in real life, even though they seem very real in ceremony. Some of them really are, and certainly some of the philosophical stuff and the deep conversations about how you should behave in the real world for the betterment of yourself, all of that is valid and it's good stuff. But some of the other stuff can lead you down a path for a while of belief, and then it gets blown out of the water again. And so there's always this constant sort of reevaluation going on with what she teaches you, because what she said before now doesn't make any sense. So I've gotten accumulated a lot of this. So this had to come out, because and this is what the conversation was basically about. She'd hinted that, look, you're still not independent because of what's happened with your mother, because that's what narcissists do, and I know that especially mothers, they build a dependency culture on not just the children, but anyone around them, as a psychic vampire kind of scenario, emotional vampirism, all of this. That's what they do, and I'm aware that I'm still under that, because obviously I lived with my mother for the last 18 years. I wasn't working a lot because I was just incapable, and sorry, I can hear Colin on the phone next door. So, she was reiterating this, but she said, you have to get to a point where you're going to have to be independent because it's better for you. She said, I know. She said, look, but it's your choice. She said, I've told you before, what you've been through and everything, you're exonerated from, you've done your main task. And of course that suits me to believe that. But she said, you've got to be aware though, that if you want to go ahead and do assisted suicide because you run out of money and you still have back issues or whatever, she said, it's your choice. She said, and I know it's a contradictory aspect, because what would be the point of going through all this healing? But she did say, well, because you're not there yet, we're still healing you. You're not repaired yet, but you're fixated on this as you don't want to live the way things are going, with what is coming, especially with everything I know about what's going on in the world and all the vaccine pandemic, the vaccine passports, lack of travel, the eventual sort of inability for ayahuasca retreats to sustain themselves internationally, all of this. But it is in the future, and I'm also aware of that. You don't know, it's not written yet, etc., etc. But anyway, the main thing still very much is an escapism, because it's an inability from a sense of lack of confidence, of having no skills to offer in the world, as I perceive myself, because I'm still got a pretty negative view, especially when we're going to go in these dark moods. And there was a heavy element of a cleaning that I was aware of, that what I spoke about in the previous videos, of that sheet of dark energy as she's portrayed it, to give you something to visualize and kind of imagine what, as a way to see what is constraining you as part of your trapped trauma, etc. And I was aware of that, and I was aware even at the time, because I was made to go through these emotions. Like Colin said in his, the first thing he had for the first hour of his session was severe depression and suicidal thoughts again, because that's what he's been through for a long time, and that's under the influence of the plant spirits. It does that. That's the reliving of your trauma. So I was in that space, but I was aware of it. But nevertheless, the aspects of anger about, because it was really important to me after seeing this video of Grannon, it really disturbed me, because obviously it was such a negative view, because the upshot of his at the end was, don't ever do ayahuasca again. So to be on a YouTube video was very difficult for me to see, because it's erroneous. It's his opinion and he's entitled to it, but he doesn't, as clever as he is, he doesn't actually know where he's coming from. And of course I get protective about it, because ayahuasca does a lot of good for a lot of people, and it's not for anyone to say that nobody should do ayahuasca, especially coming from someone who's got such a prevalent YouTube site with as many followers as he's got, with his level of qualifications and experience in psychology. It really pissed me off, and I did want to. I thought, I'm not going to even reach out, but it disturbed me for the night. It really actually almost made me a bit kind of anxious for the night. So I sort of said at the time to Mama in my doing a rapé, and I tried to help myself remember as well. I was like, when I next see you again in ceremony, Mama, I really need to talk about this. I want an answer. I want to know if that was actually you talking to Grannon, or something else that may have, thinking from the trickster kind of spirit point of view, because it was the way what he described, it was unquestionably a fake shaman and an absolute rip-off. And he was disturbed as a psychologist. He said there was a girl walking across crawling at the end of the ceremony. He actually did get up and walk out. He said that the atmosphere was shit. They didn't have facilitators there to help anybody. Nobody was coming in the event of anyone having a difficulty. It was a shambles, absolutely disgusting. And it probably cost a lot of money in Switzerland too, with a fake shaman. So you got all these people who are doing ayahuasca thinking that they're having this genuine experience, probably getting ripped off the fuck, but they don't know any different. Because they probably never had a real shaman, and this guy's just come from Ecuador, as he explains in that video. So anyway, if he's a fake shaman, you don't know what's going on, because the ayahuasca is obviously still working, because Grannon said he had something talking to him. And I thought, well, Christ, that's really interesting. It's his first one. He's completely skeptical about these things, but he got the voice connection to what he assumed was ayahuasca, but horribly, really nastily talking to him. Very derogatory, but you'll have to watch the video. Just search Richard Grannon ayahuasca and you'll find it. And it's really disturbing for someone who, like me, who's done a lot and seen so much benefit to myself and so many other people. So anyway, I needed to talk to Mum about this, because I said, and it cropped up. I did remember it in the sermon. I said, okay, I got a question for you. I really need an answer to this. Richard Grannon's ceremony, you know the one I'm talking about. What happened? Was that you? And if so, what was going on there? Nothing. I didn't get any reply at all. And I thought, this is bollocks. So I was pissed off about this, because then it just continued to shatter my already suffering level of belief, this sort of a faith crisis, if you like, that after seeing that video, and I was with what I was going through back in Iquitos, and low days and depression and all the rest of it on the odd days, boredom and apathy and all the rest of the shit, which was partly being clean. I was still on a diet. I mean, I still had hangovers from the previous dieta, because you kind of know by your levels of sensitivity. And now I'm kind of got enough experience to know, I can almost sort of think, yeah, that integration thing, there's still some cleaning going on, which is why I'm going through this mood. And Maestro told me that the dieta, although we were closed on the Friday, I said, why do the drink again on the Thursday if you're going to close me on the Friday? He said, oh, it will continue. How long? Oh, a week, whatever. It's all a bit vague. So, there's a lot of elements that don't even know the details of for sure how it works in that respect. But anyway, something you kind of get your own intuition. You have feelings, could be right, could be wrong. And this was what was going through my head. What do I know? I was actually at this stage going, what the hell? After everything I've done, I'm just doubting everything. what do I know about anything at the moment? So I was going through this really bad situation anyway. So then to come back to the ceremony to iron a few things out and then get blanked, I wasn't happy. And anyway, when I got back to the room and the conversations continued, we talked about other stuff. She'd pop in and she'd talk about this and that, and we get, sidetracked. There was all sorts of shit going on. Well, not just shit, but just good stuff and interesting stuff as usual. Because there's no necessary logical framework. Sometimes she pops up with various things and whatever it is. But anyway, the upshot of it was, it really took off back in the room. And I wouldn't let it go. Because then it got to the realms of, what is the point of any of this? Because if you're not going to just tell me the truth or answer my questions, how can I possibly trust you? Because I'm doubting this. And she said, yeah, well, I know, but it's the kind of thing, but certain things I can't talk about. So I pressed on various questions. She said, I said, I know you've blanked me before in the past. There's certain things that you just don't talk about, or you say, I can't explain that to you because you just wouldn't understand it. You're a three-dimensional creature. It's too complicated. And it's like, she won't even give you an idea. Sometimes she does, sometimes she doesn't. Depends on the depth. Like sometimes she'll give you really deep insights, the workings of the universe, hinting at the great architect who created all. Well, this went really deep on this one, and it got overwhelmingly ridiculous, which made me even more angry. Because when I got to this point, this is not good enough. How can you possibly expect me to continue to want to work and function if all cards aren't on the table, yours and mine? I assume that you know everything about me because, well, you're in my head and you can control my body in ceremony, physically. You know everything about me, but if it's not reciprocal, how can it's affecting trust, and it's affecting me negatively. And of course, but you're also aware that she's much smarter and things are being done a particular way. Maybe it was to get this out, a level of anger, because it's something inside of me. And this is sort of when I was getting frustrated, and then she said, go on, said, you want to swear at me? But because we swear at each other a lot, but it's joking. But this time she said, yeah, you want to swear at me? I said, I do. She said, go ahead. Doesn't, there's no offense here because I love you. There's only love where I am, Steve, and that's, that, but you're doubting it. So go ahead. And I did. So I was just like, well, for fuck's sake, went kind of off on this. And I was in a really, just my language skills in that conversation were really sharp, very eloquent with her. So I felt I was really on the ball to make these really complicated and very genuine arguments, logical arguments about emotion and empathy and just deep stuff that I could explain a lot. And I was very clear on it all. And she was, again, starting off with this vague and reluctant. And it got on to, again, about the point of everything then. And there was a lot, I've forgotten most of it now, the details, but the upshot that was really disturbing was it came back to about existence of all creatures, including her, and her status in the hierarchy of things. Because to iron out these questions, it got to the point basically of what's the point of anything then? If I can't even have this journey for where it's my only secure sort of anchor for where I am right now in the world, in my personal life, with all the doubts and insecurities that are coming up in the future, etc. And I haven't got you that I can rely on. And actually, I'm starting to doubt. And how this relates with everything that, the negativity you have to go through, the suffering you have to go through. I was in that state of saying, it's all just a fucking waste of time. And you wonder why I just want to bail out. And she said, no, I perfectly understand. And you know that I support you with whatever your choice is. So I don't want it ever to come to that. And she says that when you continue the plants, that it shouldn't come to that. But at the time, probably because it was being purged, because I did feel different the next day. I didn't have the same moods because of what was concluded in this conversation, which basically we got to this philosophical stalemate because it had to go into the point of all existence itself, any of it. And then she just kept saying, it's a pointless question because you can never know. So don't ask the question. It's there's no point. It's a futile question because there's no answer. I said, but assuming that she knows, but she didn't want to tell me. I said, because I was still stuck in this. But if there's no fucking point, it doesn't seem to have a point. You know, if we're just on this plane of existence to go through what we're going without any direction, and we're not told exactly for sure, and everything's ambiguous, there's no point. And then it got really interesting because she sort of started to explain, referring to herself, and said, as an example, because I kept asking this same question, why you're not giving me an answer. She said, stop asking me why, as if like she was getting angry. She said, stop asking me the question. And I kept asking. I said, but it doesn't make blah, blah, blah. It doesn't make any sense because I'm doing this and that. But this can't make sense. And that's why I'm in this frustrated situation, because I need the answers. She said, stop asking the question because there's no answer to it, kind of thing. And this just made me worse. So in the end, she actually did relent and go a little bit further and said, all right, think of the universe and its multi-dimensions. Think of every life form that can possibly exist in your imagination in those dimensions and in this universe, including me, her. She said, I don't know myself. I don't know. I said, what do you mean you don't know? How can you not know? She said, think of it this way. Of all of these creatures, we've spoken about this program in the mind of the great creator. She said, think of me as part of that as well. And I'm created as part of that overall program that's come from the mind of the great architect. And there were kind of images of this, like mythological origins of some belief systems in past human epochs of like maybe a big dragon that's asleep in the universe and everything's a dream in his head. That's the dream of the universe, but it's just his dream. So again, you're in this infinite regression, and it's just like, and on ayahuasca, it goes much deeper and much more intricate than I can possibly explain. So you've got all this going on, with just to a level of depth that's mind-bending, and just it's so hard to explain. And as well as the emotions that are going on, and the other feelings in your body as well. And needing an answer to this, and then feeling these negative emotions as well, which I was also aware, because you've got multi-levels of awareness too, kind of stuff going on as well at the same time. So it's a really weird, it's incredible really when you think about it, but how it affects what the mind space is capable of, you know, because that was one of the things I said. I said, what's the point in having the human animal being able to have these such deep levels of access and thought then if we don't get the whole answer? It's pointless because it's just a fucking rabbit hole of meaninglessness, isn't it? And when she said, I don't know, and it took her a long time to come to that, she said, think of me in that respect as the same as you. I'm part of that same dream of the supreme architect. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, really? I said, but all of the suffering that goes on the planet, that's real. For people who suffer, all the animals that die and all the humans that go through all this shit, what is the point? Is this some kind of experiment or what? And she said, well, in some ways you could think of it like that. And she gave this idea that, because thinking about this perpetual, because we got into this perpetual, if it's a perpetual war between good and evil, with Earth as sort of on this particular plane and in this particular space, in space, of being the battleground where everything's being fought from or fought over, that it's a perpetual cycle, the yin and yang thing that just goes on for the almost infinity. And because the idea that this is a program, it kind of got, well, it's just an experiment. She said, you could think of it like like it's an experiment, but just like one statistical experiment that billions of them could be being run in multi-dimensional universes, sort of thing. And you're getting, oh, for fuck's sake, this just makes it even worse. This is even more pointless because. So what's the point of the program? And because she'd already told me that she didn't know because she was part of it. So it kind of gave me this idea of that it's just an aggregate, like wargaming. Like it's just a statistical program that runs to see out of how many incarnations of all the different life forms that are running in all the different spaces, how many times good wins over evil in that particular space, as if it's going to make an aggregation, statistical aggregation of the overall outcome. And I'm still thinking, but that's just totally fucking insane. Whatever the mind of the grand created, that's just insane. And she said, that's why I kept saying to you, stop asking the question. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. Well, so it's fucking pointless. There's never going to be, anything beyond the bounds of different levels of knowledge or experience in relative levels of esotericism or mysticism or religion or anything else, because you're never going to know what you're dealing with, because you're just a particular creature in a particular space with particular limitations on your ability to fathom the depths of this stuff. So and of course the mood I was in, I was really just fucking existential crisis by this point. I was just like, there's no point in fucking anything, because if that's just made it worse, because there's no point to anything. And she said, there is a point. And I'm like, can't see it at the minute. She said, yeah, there is. She said, you've got to live for the moment, because what's real for you is actually real, moment to moment. It still comes back to doing the right thing and being the best person that you can be, and enjoying the beauty that you do enjoy, and everybody does enjoy from time to time, in the moment, and stop thinking about the future. This trap that's been made by the dark side to keep people trapped in worrying about the future, worrying about dying, worrying about always having money, worrying about the general day-to-day life that humans exist on this planet. So it's the personal spiritual growth for you as an individual, and just making the best of what seems to be an insane situation. That is what you should only be thinking about in an ideal situation. That's what you're trying to attain. So that's the point, because that is the only point. Now that we've had this mega, and this conversation was over 3 hours while I was back tripping my balls off in the room. So, of course, I was still not happy about it. I was still in the negative space about the overall, because I was just going, well, fuck it then, because it's just the whole thing's fucking pointless from my point of view. It's just made me feel even more like when the money runs out, and when this last, effectively, as I see it as a last year of money, that's my life, thinking 60th birthday, fuck it, I'll go and find one of these, fucking assisted suicide places, and by then COVID's probably in full fucking ramp the second time round, all the rest of it, and I've just had enough. I don't want to live in that environment where it's a complete world of fucking insane tyranny, with what's going on in the world now, which I've spoken about. Still, the Pike letter says it all, especially looking at feeds today. The fucking dirty bomb scenario, because it's about chaos. All of the immigration stuff, there's loads of stuff going on with the fires in France, and I know exactly what they're doing because it's in that letter, and I've known for a long time, 5 years since I found that letter, and it just summed it up. That's why it's that important to me, because people aren't still making that final link yet that it's driving chaos, and it is obviously the fires in France, it's burning cars everywhere. Everybody, all the immigration, it's all deliberate. It's part of their fucking plan. It's to mix everyone up, all the different groups, get everyone, as it says in that letter, at each other's throat. for the final cataclysm, as was said in that letter. And that's exactly what's going on. But even a lot of mainstream not mainstream, but a lot of outlets who report on this stuff, they're still not making the final link. They're still blaming it on, oh, well, this immigration's cause. We've got to get more integration in society. We've got to, have people that believe that they're going to be part of a country and not still, no. You're missing, it's done specifically for that to happen, the negative side of that, so that they don't integrate, so that you do have everyone from the Middle East with their Muslim backgrounds not being able to integrate into other people's fixed societies, because it's just to generate hate, confusion, and anger and resentment and everything else, because it's about bringing about the final chaos. But now, of course, they've also got the war in the Ukraine, which at the moment is looking like they're going to blame the Russians for when the Ukrainians were and supported by the West to attack the nuclear power station, cause a major load of panic, and then for NATO to walk in, because they want this to happen in their delusional Masonic space because of their beliefs, as I outlined before. So anyway, that's what I've known for years. So that's why I've always, and I haven't been wrong yet about any of it. The details, yeah, you didn't know how they were going to bring about the bioweapon, or how they had a lot of options to create the first round, but they're just going to double down on it even worse, because the document's going through the WHO now. It's being reviewed. It will take away sovereignty from every country, and it's all over the internet. And this is why they're not closing. This is the other thing. Think about how many channels got deplatformed during that period of the last 3 years, and now they're not, because they want a lot of people to actually wake up after, because it's too late. So this will also create major fear, resentment for those who think, well, what's going to happen to me now? Oh my God, am I going to get ill? Am I going to have the heart attack, the brain hemorrhage, or blah, blah, blah? And you know what I'm talking about, without saying the actual word that might get flagged and get the video blocked. Who knows, may still be. But I doubt it, because there's plenty of people talking about it. Even the doctor, what was his name the other day? I didn't watch it because there's no point for me, because I know it anyway. But some doctor in the EU Parliament about, basically being a genocide. And somebody here, I won't say who, we were talking about this the other night, and somebody here said he believes that it's going to mean like 6 billion people are going to die. And I said right from the start, it's depopulation and sterilization, because they need to get a reduced amount, and let alone all the shit that's going on. They've already got their army of brain controlled zombies with the Alphabet Soup Brigade, and you know who I'm talking about there, because you watch YouTube videos of the movements, the marches that they can do, haranguing people and locking them in rooms when they do a talk at universities and stuff. So they've already got that army of zombies. But again, they're just mixing everybody. It's divide and conquer, the same as it's always been. So anyway, had all that going on, which I knew, as to my reasons to why bother continuing, especially if there's just the afterlife anyway. Fine with that, because this is just bullshit. But anyway, that was the answer. And the next morning, she said, but the other thing you do have to realize, she said, it's part of you're still sick in that respect. You've got this inability to feel positive about yourself and being able to function, that you have anything to offer in the real world, to be able to support yourself. And this is why you're so worried about the money eventually coming to the end of that trail. She said, but for your own benefit, just from a human benefit, you need to find something. She said, I'm not going to help you with that, because we're doing all we can, and you're already aware that you have to work the other 50% to get the best out of ayahuasca and change your life, and that's on you. That's your choice, and only you can do that. Obviously, we're helping you, because whenever you come to ceremony, we're continuing to clean you and heal you as best as possible of this. She said, but sooner or later, we'll come to a point where you have to take that responsibility, or you'll take the other path. And she said, and that's fine too, but shame to do it, right? What a waste. And that's partly the question. I was like, well, why are you bothering? You know, if you've said to me before that that's my choice and my decision, why would you bother to put so much effort into me? She said, because we love you. She said, I love you, that's why. And you deserve it. You've suffered enough. So now you're entitled. You've earned the healing because you've been through enough. And that's why we told you it won't make any difference whenever you die. And she said, and clarified this sort of religious aspect to it, like she's hinted at, like she said before, but clarified. She said, you know, that all of that, all the biblical stuff that you're aware of from your, you know, your youth and whatever, even though you never read the Bible, you're aware of the notions of heaven and hell and Satan and the devil and all that bullshit. She said, all there is on this side is unconditional love. So it doesn't matter what you do. You're a spirit entity. It doesn't matter what's happened when you're in the human form. There's no hell. We don't make people suffer. You don't go to hell. When you cross over again, you become part of the supreme consciousness collective. And you're just an environment of love, because that's all there is. So that's why we said to you that you, in the previous ceremonies, you've passed all your tests. It doesn't matter what you do now. There's no judgment. You know, I'm effectively off the hook. But I was also, well, maybe she's just telling me that as part of training up to a point, because the training ongoing and having previous experience of where all of a sudden you go, you know, a month later and then the narrative's changed and it's like, oh, forget that. That's what you needed at the time, which is part of the healing to get rid of a particular aspect of negative psychology or bad energy. And now that that's gone, well, we're actually telling you this now. Forget that. That wasn't actually true. That was just what we told you, as a form to make you believe, to make you act in a certain way, because, as I've said, what's the rule? Belief is everything, because it affects your perception of reality, which affects what actions you take in the real world. So you're basically a fish on a hook, aren't you? You know, you're just being reeled along at different stages, and then and these, if it's a fish of negative energies, having other fish take chunks out of it, you know, to strip you down to the purest version and the best version that you can be. So the next morning I did manage to finally drop off, after the vomit and diarrhea and all the rest of it. But I woke up, I was still feeling really groggy, like a hangover. And that lasted all day, and I've never had that last that long on Aya that I can remember. All day, and then a migraine in the evening as well. But it could have been partly I'd done the dieta drink that morning as well, so that could have been hitting me for the first time. And then dehydration as well, and just it was a real lack of sleep kind of feeling, and it was just not very pleasant all day. So that really was, I mean, it was, I can't explain what it was really like. It was intense, and in so many ways, and the level of conversation was just incredible. The argument was unbelievable. But anyway, there's no point talking more about it really, because, you know, that's the best I can do to try and explain the depth of what it was, but it was much, much deeper than that. And from a personal experience perspective, it was really, really intense, and one hell of a conversation, stroke argument. But, you know, it was very, very intellectual, and obviously with what you're seeing when you're on ayahuasca, with the different insights going on amidst this conversation, she's showing you images and giving you ideas as a way to visualize this aspect of the universe with this the mind of the great creator that even she's at a loss with. So this is where but you still aspects. I came away with it, just go, fine, I give up. I just accept, okay. The next day I did actually feel like that, just go, okay, it's just the way it is. As she said, stop asking the question. They're philosophical human questions with no answer. The same as the simple one of God created everything, who created God? It's a pointless regression. It's the same thing. It was just shown in that vision as a lot more convoluted, and her role, if it's even true, you know, if she even exists, it might all be in our heads. You know, the actual experiment might be just in our AI brain. You know, we don't know. And you'll never know. It could be a form of futuristic technology that's so advanced we just see it as biological life. It can be anything you can imagine. And this is where psychedelics are fantastically interesting, because I've had these conversations with Colin, because he's done 7.5 gram over like the 5 gram heroic doses where you're tripping seriously, like almost ayahuasca level tripping. I think if I did a heroic dose, I'd probably be talking to Mama, because I know she's there. She basically told me when she handed me off to mushrooms, just briefly popped into my head when I was inadvertently tripping on a 0.5 gram microdose, and actually did start to trip very mildly, and then just had like, not her voice exactly, but that was when I was in Colombia, when I was told by Mama, can't do any more for you now, I'm going to hand you over to mushrooms. But basically, again, not being vague, like I've said before, instead of saying, you need a break now, you need to just have a good loads of months off, go back to the UK. She doesn't tell you, go back to the UK, go have your eyes done. Nothing's explicit, which, would be really helpful. And of course, you really want that. Because else, for me, on this journey, it's like I'm just being like a zombie on this path of just, all I know is that I have to continue the path because I've got healing to do. And that's just not just physical, but I know there's psychological stuff, let alone if you want to get into the dark energy side, which you never know how much you're carrying until you're actually in ceremony, you get a bit of an idea. Or she shows you something like that veil that cocoon that she showed me around that particular emotion, which I think is what that was all about. That ceremony was about removing that, because I have felt a lot better and a lot more positive since that, because at least it has some kind of resolution. It's like, stop asking the pointless, super deep philosophical question. There's no answer to it. Don't ask me. But, she doesn't just say, right, well, here's the reason why that's pointless, Steve, and then explain it. No, I had to go through. So now I'm looking at that going, but I was in a pre-programmed ayahuasca mode to get that frustration and the anger out under the influence of the plant spirits. So the next day, you do actually kind of make sense of it and go, well, at least it was a cleaning, because she was working on that, and she had to take me down that conversational rabbit hole to get the responses of the anger, frustration, existential crisis of faith, to clean it out. You see? So again, and then you go, she's pretty smart. She's still a supreme being in that respect, and is working for the best of you. So you see, even this is where it works. The negative stuff that you experience is always for a reason. That's absolutely clear. So the next morning I was fine. Apart from feeling like just groggy and shit, hangovery, physical, but I just thought, right, because my default position is, fuck, I just don't care anymore. I can't be fucked. And that works for me. And that's what I'm like with everything, though. And of course, that is negative overall, because it makes me, and that's always been the case with my life. It's just, especially at this age, because I'm 60, and I've just been through all the shit, and I just can't be arsed. 60 next year, so I just go, fuck it. I'd rather just fucking bail out. I don't want to get back to a point where I'm under stress or at work, and because you're just going to start undoing all the work that's been done. But I also did start thinking, well, I do want it, because I do want to have interest back. I want to be involved, because it's boring being stuck in this horrible psychological space of, I don't have any interest. I mean, it's shit. I mean, at least here, that's why I like to come on this. After being stuck in a keto, so I come here because I had good interviews with Colin. I've got other people to distract my attention or to be interested in, and it does interest me a lot. This trauma is the only thing I've got, but I don't have any formal psychology exams or anything. It's not like I can start doing a degree now at my age. It's just pointless. And with what's coming next year, fucking everything's going to be in all to fuck anyway. Everyone's going to be feeding, looking in rubbish bags for fucking food by the look of it. As if we're still, most people are still alive, depending what the fuck unfolds in the next year, in lots of different ways and fronts. And so, I still think I'm never going to go back to the UK again. I'd just rather travel. I'd just rather bum around and come back to Peru and then just stay if necessary until they kick me out, and I wouldn't be able to pay they'd have to actually kick me out. They'd have to find me and then kick me out. But I'd still have to have somewhere to stay. And with no money, how do you do that? I don't have survival skills to live in the jungle and eat fruit. You know, you say, well, you still got some money left, do the survival course. And I have thought about that years ago, but yeah, because I know you cannot, without money, you can't go and walk through you can't live in the fucking jungle. You're not a native, you know, like a proper native, because they live in a community anyway. You know, you can't just survive in the Amazon. You wouldn't last 24 hours in the Amazon, you know, depending what you came across. Because you'd be bitten by something or other, or get an infection, or you wouldn't be able to know what trees. I don't know what. Oh, we got shown a vine the other day that you like you can see in the Predator movie where Billy cuts the vine. Because I did ask Maestro out of interest because they're saying to I think it was Julian. I always loved the jungle walks. Like, you know, it always just reminds me of the Predator film because you see that big tree with the big roots, and I love that tree. I said it just always reminds me, you know, get to the chopper. And when he cuts the vine, I said to Gino, "Oh, Gino, what is that vine?" He said, "Oh, there's a few of them." He said, "That's one up there," and he pointed to it. But you'd never recognise it because you haven't grown up in the jungle. They all look the same. How do you know the one that you cut isn't going to be a ton of actually fresh water that you can drink straight out of the vine? It could be the one with some fucking particular plant that's got poison in the sap or something. You drink that and fucking end of story. So, you know. But anyway, I think I've covered, you know, as much as I can. But yeah, that ceremony 40. That was a serious one, and amazing, absolutely amazing. But hard physically, but really the emotional, just the psychological side of what went on and what I already had going on. It was the most intense visual. So talking to Mum in that way for that long. No wonder I had a headache the next day. But anyway, so we've got ceremony 41 tonight. It's Wednesday. We've got a couple coming. They missed the beginning, so they're coming today, Wednesday. They've rearranged the Maloka. They've got 8 mattresses in there now. So Maestro and the facilitators, there's 2, so there's enough for 6 people. So there will be 6 of us in the ceremony tonight because there's me, Colin, Alan, Joshua as normal, and then this new couple. They're coming in a minute, which should be about lunchtime. So we'll meet them. They'll be in the far room next to Joshua, and we've got 2 single beds. But after ayahuasca, I don't think they'd be getting up to much, because obviously there'd be no sex for a month or whatever. But because I said to Joshua when I saw him, I said, which room are they going in there? They're going in the other final room. He said, "Oh, it's okay. I've told them we've got single beds." It's like, no, I didn't mean like that. I know they're not going. It's not like they're going to hear them getting up to their funny business, but. Especially after an ayahuasca ceremony, I don't think you're going to be in the state to do much after one of the high rose ceremonies. I don't know if they're first timers yet or not, but anyway, we'll meet them shortly, or at some point today, and then so it's Wednesday, and we've got the rest of this week, and then all of next week for everybody, I think. I assume, because they wouldn't just come for Wednesday and Friday. It wouldn't be worth it, even though they missed a plane. Something happened. I can't remember. We don't know what happened to them, why they didn't get here for Monday, but something happened. And to another girl as well, I think, or something. But anyway, we're at maximum for now. We can only fit 6 clients, which includes me and Joshua. Well, Joshua not being a client, obviously, but so 5 clients plus Joshua is now how they've arranged the Maloka. So, you know, and they need to do it. They need the money. Especially we're talking to Joshua about the overheads just for the staff the other day. It's not funny, you know, to do things legally with the corrupt bureaucracies in countries like South America, countries in South America, that not an easy thing to run something, let alone just the overheads, the staff, the food, you know, and to only be getting, and then they're only actually open 2 weeks of every month anyway, so they're closed for 2 weeks, so it's not like they're open full time. Because of that transition required for Hyro, and to have a 2-week rest after working for 2 weeks. Other staff and just him, I suppose, just to maybe have a break because he's still full-time at work too. So anyway, it's difficult. But anyway, that's all part of whatever. So that's that one, an hour near enough. And I shall see what state I'm in tomorrow to be able to talk about possibly Colin's second ceremony tonight. To see, I'm really interested in that. I hope he's next to me tonight. I'll try and get there early to go by the door again and say to Colin, if you go here, because hopefully the girl will go in the middle of everybody, and then we'll have a balance of male and female energy. So it should be quite interesting tonight, whatever happens. But of course, I'm really curious about Colin because I'm hoping he'll do the second cup tonight. He'll be in a state, because Maestro has obviously got an awareness of his energy level now after the third, just his first cup the other night. And like Maestro said, trying to explain it, he said, oh, we do this for you first time. Because the first one, he has to see the effect of ayahuasca and get an idea of what's going on with him, what pain he's in, what energy levels and stuff like that are going on before building up. And of course, it turned out to be, he knows what he's doing, because Colin, I think I said, or yesterday in that interview, Colin was, I'm just going to do a full cup, man. I'm all in. I'm thinking, doesn't work like that, sunshine. Mama decides is first time having a full cup with what I already had talked to him about his level of trauma. No, and when he first vomited, I was kind of saying to myself, there you go, boy, told you. That's what level of negative energy you're carrying. Ayahuasca's barely even hit your stomach. It needs to get out the shit that it's found just as it arrived there. Within 15 minutes of being drunk, you're vomiting. That's an indication of how much shit you've got inside you. So I think he's going to have a good experience at the end of it. Pretty confident about that, because most people do. He's already feeling good today, but I think tonight's going to be a fucking good one, a strong one for everybody, including me. You never know, but the Wednesday, if there's going to be a strong one, it's usually the Wednesday, because Friday can't be, because usually if people are here for a week, then they have to leave on Saturday, so it's never quite as strong, although depends if you're staying or not. And if everyone is staying, then there's no reason why these next few can't be really strong, before people have a relatively easy one on the final Friday. Because in Colin's case, obviously, the level of trauma he's carrying is like me, nowhere near as bad as me, but as I was. But yeah, I said to him this morning at breakfast, I said, first 9, first 10 can just get harder and harder, actually. I puked first 8 every time, badly, and felt fucking terrible, like you wouldn't believe. It's possible to feel horrible with none of the good stuff. But anyway, I've spoken about all that shit before. So I'll get this up now. It'll take 2 hours to get up. And I'll do another one. I might just do a quick one of the Maloka for something to do. And I'll get this up now.